Cori Bush says she's back. The former Congresswoman is officially launching her campaign to win back Missouri's 1st District. She's calling it the fight of her life after losing her seat to Wesley Bell last year. Bush says she'll stand toe-to-toe against Donald Trump's agenda, and she's promising St. Louis a fighter who will not back down. So let's turn to our political editor, Mark Maxwell. He joins us from the newsroom. So Mark, Cori Bush says she's built for this fight. But has anything really changed since she was voted out of office? That was just last year.
An awful lot, Ann. The landscape is totally different today. First of all, Donald Trump is back in the White House. He's energizing a lot of the political sentiment in the country, and Cori Bush is positioning herself as the sharpest critic of that agenda. At the same time, Wesley Bell, he spent the last year building himself into something of a deal maker, someone who can reach across the aisle and find compromise. You sprinkle in that tornado recovery where Bush's allies were deeply involved in the community, organizing the people's response, forging new ties there. She hopes to parlay that into political momentum, but looming over all that, something else new, her husband's federal indictment and how voters might weigh that against her record.
So you mentioned the husband's indictment. Does that make Bush more vulnerable, or does she still have that very loyal grassroots energy that powered her first win?
That's one of the big questions we're going to be watching for over these next 10 months. Bush still has that loyal base. They see her as their champion, someone who's willing to confront Washington head on. But I will say her margin of victory, if you go back and look, it's always been quite slim. Scandals like her husband's indictment could complicate that outsider brand and make it a bit more of an uphill sled for her. But Wesley Bell, he's at the same time been arguing that he's delivered steady leadership without that drama. So this race could come down to whether voters want a fighter back or whether they stick with this compromiser that they've already chosen once before.
And Wesley Bell, he did respond about this today. He's not holding back. He says voters fired Cori Bush once, and he points to those legal troubles you mentioned and personal troubles. So again, is it going to carry weight in the rematch between the two of them?
Yeah, it's shaping up to be a blunt attack. It shows this race will not be a polite one. We know it got deeply personal last time. Bell is betting that voters care more about results than rhetoric. He's talking about lowering costs, protecting health care, and delivering for the district. Bush, on the other hand, says she's the fighter that St. Louis needs to show up against Trump and the MAGA agenda. So you've got this classic clash here, a Democratic primary fight, the deal maker versus the firebrand, and voters will decide, was Bush's defeat a one-time setback or a verdict they're ready to deliver again? We've got those 10 months to go until voters finally deliver that verdict, a long time to determine if Bush will branch out and show a new strategy, one more open to the press. We have invited her to come sit down and talk about her agenda in an interview.
Mark, thanks.